and I say to them, okay, like I think I'm ready to get baptized. And then the sister from Botswana, she says to me, you shouldn't think, you should know. I think you should pray about it this whole week. And she was like, when you get that answer, bring it to our next lesson.
Hi, and welcome back to Latter-day Believers. My name is Lauren, and today I'm joined by Thomas, a recent convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who is originally from New York, and then Florida, and then now has ended up in Utah. Thomas, how'd you end up in Utah?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. It's so great to be here and joined by yourself. I've seen like so many videos on the channel, so it's
Cool.
super cool, to be here. So yeah, like we were kind of talking about like off camera, I'm originally from upstate New York. So I was born like just outside of Albany and lived there until I was about like my freshman year of high school. Moved to a town in Florida, on the east coast of Florida. It's called Vero Beach. And so my parents live there right now, and a lot of my family lives in Vero Beach. Yeah. So how did I end up in Utah? Yeah. So it basically all started when I was in college. So when I was in college, I was in a fraternity. And so the fraternity that I was in, it's called Sigma Chi. So when I was in Sigma Chi, I found out about this program, and it's called the Huntsman Leadership Summit. And so basically the Huntsman Leadership Summit is sponsored by like a prominent Utah family. It's called the Huntsman family. Have you ever heard of the Huntsmans
Not
before?
until you told me just now.
Yeah. So the Huntsmans, they're like a big family in Utah.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, their whole story was started by this guy named John Huntsman Sr. And so he was like born in Idaho and was like dirt poor, like super poor. And he really wanted to do like everything he could to like not be poor. Like he hated like how it made him feel.
Right.
And like he wanted to get out of like the poverty that he was in. And so through like a lot of hard work and like determination and perseverance, he went from like barefoot to a billionaire.
Yeah.
And so the Huntsmans, so John Huntsman Sr., he was in Sigma Chi, the fraternity that I was in. So were a lot of his like sons, and so Russ Nelson, he was in Sigma Chi too.
Really? That's so cool.
At the University of Utah. So it was like Emerson Ballard and like a few other church leaders. And so so when John Huntsman, when he became, like a billionaire, he dedicated his whole life to like giving back. And so they have like a partnership with Sigma Chi to fund this like leadership program. And so it's called the Huntsman Leadership Summit. And so basically thousands of students like across the country who are in Sigma Chi apply every year to go to the Huntsman Leadership Summit. So yeah, my sophomore year of college, which was 2017, I applied to go to the Huntsman Leadership Summit, got accepted, and then flew out to Salt Lake City to go to Snowbird for like 10 days. And we took a tour of like the Huntsman Cancer Institute at the University of Utah. And I was there with like 50 other students just from universities across the country. And I just like fell in love with Utah. Like I like just felt something different like when I was here than when I was in Florida. So I go on this trip, and then I go back to Florida, go back to college. And I would just say for the past probably so since like 2017, so what, the past like 7 years, I would say to like my friends and family, like, I want to move to Utah. And people would be like, why do you want to move there?
It's so random if they don't have context.
Yeah, exactly. So Tampa was just like overflowing with people. And I was like, I've been living there for 7 years, because I went to school there for 4 years, and then I was living there for 3 years after. And I just like kept feeling that, that like prompting, like, I need to move to Utah. Yeah. So this was like April of 2023. So like last April. So I was working at like a press release agency. So like I majored in like mass communications and like journalism. So I've always loved like news. And so I was working at this, press release agency, and our company got like acquired by another company.
Mhm.
And so due to this like acquisition, like they laid off like a bunch of people in my company.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I got laid off. And so I'm like in Tampa, just got like laid off from like this company that I loved
Yeah,
working at. And I was like, at first I was like really upset, like nobody wants, that to happen to them.
of
But like
course.
when that happened, I was like, wait, like I can move to Utah
It's the
now.
perfect
Yeah.
opportunity.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm not like tied to Tampa anymore. Like my friends are here, like
Yeah.
this is where like I know like literally like everything. Like I know this like city like the back of my hand.
Right.
But I just kind of took that as like a sign, like, this is like your chance.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just started like to really think about like what do I want to do? Like, now, like what do I want to do now?
Right.
And I went and like told my mom, I was like, hey, like I'm thinking about moving to Salt Lake. Like what do you think? And my mom basically said, like, why not? Like, you're only young once. If you don't like it, you could always move back.
Right.
And yeah, and she knew like that I had been, talking about wanting to move to Salt Lake for years.
Mhm.
So I decided like, let's do it. Yeah. So I move out of my apartment in Tampa, start searching for a job in Salt Lake, start searching for an apartment in Salt Lake, find both of them, and then start planning out this big move. Something I should probably mention. So I love like history. So I love like going to museums or like reading history books
Right.
or like watching historical documentaries.
So did you investigate like the history of Utah or
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much. So I'm like, oh, like I'm moving to Utah and like I'm moving to Salt Lake City. Like I should probably know, like I should look into like just like what the history is. And
right.
so I had like heard of, I'd heard of like the church before. Like, I knew about like Mormons
Mhm.
and I had heard of like BYU and I had seen like, like the South Park episode,
Oh my goodness.
on
Yeah, I
on the
know.
church.
Yeah.
So I had like seen these like very like mainstream things, but I
Mhm.
didn't really know anything you know like
About like the church
deeper.
itself.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I just had like a lot of free time like before I made this move, and I just like started like researching the church like a lot, and
Mm.
I kind of like just fell in this like rabbit hole of like reading about the church.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so
What kind of information did you come across online? Was it a lot of anti or was it positive?
yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a lot of anti stuff online, like
Yeah, of
as you know,
course.
for sure. Yeah, so I go on like the church's website. I'm like watching YouTube videos. I'm on like Wikipedia, and so I start reading about like like Joseph Smith, and
Mm.
I was like, whoa, like Joseph Smith is from upstate New York, and like I'm from upstate New York,
Yeah.
and so I just like was reading like a lot, and on the church's YouTube channel, there's a like an hour long like video. It's called Joseph Smith, the Prophet of the Restoration,
Mhm.
and it's basically like an hour long like documentary about like the life of Joseph Smith, and it's like extremely good quality. And I like watched this video and I was like, whoa, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And so yeah, growing up, like I was, I guess like, so I was like baptized Catholic, and my mom is Catholic. Like she's not going to church like every weekend, but like she grew up like she went to like a Catholic middle school, like a Catholic
Mhm.
high school. She went to like two Catholic colleges. So like growing up, like I was going to like like Catholic Sunday school and like
Right.
things like that. And but like we kind of like stopped, I would say, like when I was in like probably in, like middle school or around there, we just like it was just like we just had our family just had like a lot going on, and like religion just wasn't like the thing that we were doing every
Mhm.
weekend. And so like we never really like talked about like religion growing up. So I didn't go to church. Like I never went to church in like high school
Right.
or college or like post college. And but like I would say like during COVID, or maybe towards like the end of college, so maybe like 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
like 2020 era, I was trying to like think about like what do I really like believe in? And because I would like pray like
Mhm.
all the time, but I was like, I don't go to church. Like what am I praying to? And like I definitely believed in like God, and like I like in Jesus Christ,
Right.
but like definitely didn't know like a lot of
Yeah.
gospel like background. So when I was reading about Joseph Smith, um he was going through this like faith crisis, and so I felt just like super like relatable that Joseph Smith was going through this like faith crisis. He wanted to know, what church do I join? And I was like, I want to know what church to join. And I actually lived across my senior year of college. I lived across the street, like from a ward, and so I would like see them like all like I would see them every Sunday. So that was kind of my first time like seeing the church, like seeing a ward. So I was doing like a lot of research on the church. I knew about all of the places that like the saints were at. So I knew about Joseph Smith in the first vision. I knew about like Moroni visiting Joseph Smith. I knew about all the different places that they went. So I knew about like Kirtland and Nauvoo and Independence, Missouri, and I knew about like Carthage Jail and like Liberty Jail. Like I knew a lot of like the church historical events, but I didn't know anything about the Book of Mormon. So like I did not. I knew it was like a book,
Yeah.
but like
you knew it existed.
Yeah, exactly. I knew it existed, but I didn't know about like Lehi, or
Right.
Nephi, or Alma. Like I didn't know anything about the scriptures.
Yeah.
So like literally all I knew was like a lot of church history. Yeah, and it was like fascinating that like these people were back then, because like our like our founding fathers and like these people who created our country, they and people who came to to the Americas in the first place, like they were in search of like religious freedom,
Right.
and the United States was like founded on religious freedom, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like they had no religious freedom,
No.
and so like they were getting chased from city to city, and
Right.
they're getting like killed, and their
Yeah.
houses are getting burned down, and I was just like, this is like, it was like inspiring, just to
Yeah.
read these stories of these people who they had so much going on,
And they persevered through a lot for what they believed in.
yeah, and like they didn't let that like shake them,
Right.
So yeah, so I just read a lot about Joseph Smith, felt like it was super relatable, and all Joseph Smith like really had to do was like ask our Heavenly Father, and I just thought that was like so incredible. And I loved watching Joseph Smith, the Prophet of the Restoration. I thought it was awesome.
And this
So
was all before you moved to Utah.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah, so I'm still in Florida.
So you're just investigating
I'm just like deep diving into the church. Probably watched some Saints Unscripted videos, honestly, and watched just like so many videos, and it just felt it felt like it just like made sense, and it like spoke to me. So
what happened after you moved to Utah?
Yeah, so like the first thing I wanted to do was like go to Temple Square.
Really?
Yeah. Like
at this point, were you like interested in joining, or you were just so curious because you were like kind of getting obsessive about this history and so interested in it?
Yeah, no, I definitely wasn't. I definitely had no interest. Like, yeah, definitely didn't think I would end up joining.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like coming to Utah like looking to join.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, I wanted to know like all this history. So yeah, it's like August 2nd. Okay. I live on North Temple. So I live like a block away from the conference center. So I'm like within walking distance, of all of these, church sites. And so I walk over to Temple Square, and they took it out now because of the construction, but there was like a bell tower in Temple Square.
Oh.
And it was like the Nauvoo bell. And so I believe it was like this bell that the Relief Society like brought from Nauvoo. They like saved it and like carried it over in like a wagon, and they built, I don't know, I mean they probably built the bell tower, but the bell itself, I mean maybe the bell tower is too, but I know like the bell is from Nauvoo.
Right.
So I'm in Temple Square, and at the bell tower there's just like a plaque, it says like, hey, this bell was brought across the plains by the Relief Society, etc. And so I'm just like reading it, and these two sister missionaries walk up to me, and they say to me like, hey, like, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, it's going good. I just moved here yesterday. And they asked me like, what do you know about the church? And I told them like what I knew. So I told them like, what I had been researching. So like I said, I knew a lot of like church history. So I told them, and they were just like completely shocked, that I, knew so much.
Mhm.
And we started just like, chatting. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know the Salt Lake Temple was under construction. So I was like, what is going on?
Mhm.
And they started just like telling me about all of the things that you can do in Temple Square. So they're from South Carolina and Washington, D.C. And the sister from South Carolina, she now goes to BYU. And so she says to me, hey, today's the last day of my mission. She was like, I'm going home tomorrow. She was like, can I read you my favorite scripture? And I was like, yeah, of course. So
That's
she
awesome.
so she pulls out the Book of Mormon and reads me the scripture in Jacob. I don't remember exactly what it is. I think it's Jacob 5, 1 and 2.
Mhm.
So yeah, she reads me the scripture, and that's like the first time I had ever heard of anything in the Book of Mormon. And I was like, well, that's pretty nice. And so I talked to them for probably like 30 minutes. And they, like I said, just said like, hey, like I think they said like, there's like a tour in like 10 minutes, like you should go take it. And we just like parted ways. Ended up not going on the tour. But I just like, because I was walking in downtown, I think I was walking to like a bookstore.
Right.
I was just walking like do whatever, just go explore.
So what did that lead to for eventually you joining the church? Did you reach out to missionaries next, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I'm staying at this crosswalk, and there's two different sisters, sister missionaries, standing next to me. And they the light was taking like forever to turn.
Mhm.
So I said to them, like, hey, what's up? Like, hey, how's it going? And they like said, like, hey, how are you? And then the light turned and we started walking together. They were walking to go get Chick-fil-A for lunch
Nice.
in the City Creek Mall. And I told them, I had met two sisters a couple days ago, and they were like, no way, like, we know them. And they were like super excited. And so these two sisters, they're from Canada
Mhm.
and Botswana. And
Mm.
so I talked to them for probably like 15 minutes. And then the sister from Canada says to me, do you want to come to church with us on Sunday? And I'm like, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, where is it? And she goes, oh, it's like across the street in the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, like right next to the Salt Lake Temple. And so she goes, yeah, it's on Sunday at 7:30 in the morning. Meet us outside, and we'll take you in. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, cool. So we exchanged numbers, and I was like texting them, because this is like Friday. So I was like texting them up until Sunday. They were texting me and like, how do you know so much about the church? And I told them, I just did a lot of research. And so then that whole weekend I was like
Mhm.
really thinking, I was like, should I go to this? I was definitely really nervous. Like I had no idea, like
Right.
what I was gonna go to. I texted my mom and I was like, hey, I met these missionaries. Um uh they invited me to go to church on Sunday. I like sent my mom a picture of the Joseph Smith building. I was like, this is like where it's going to be at. And my mom was like, no way. Like, that's awesome. Like, you should totally go. And I was like, okay. So yeah. And so, I mean, I was still like really thinking about it, like I was like, should I go to this? But they were the two sisters, like they were so nice. And I told them I would go. So, I wasn't going to like back out. And so
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, even if this is really weird, I'm just gonna go.
Well, what was your first experience at church like? Was it really weird or
Yeah, no, it was not what I expected. So yeah, so that Sunday comes, and so I that it's at 7:30 in the morning. So I put my suit on, walk over to the Joseph Smith building, and meet them out front. And so I walk in, and it's just me and like 200 sister missionaries.
Wow.
So I'm going to like the Temple Square like mission
Yeah.
ward. So basically like all the sisters in Temple Square, like they're going to church together.
Mhm.
So so I go and I sit down, and yeah, so then the sacrament meeting starts. And so this is August 6th. So obviously it's a Sunday. And so it's the first Sunday of the month. So it's like fast and testimony meeting. Had no idea what that was. And so, so the sacrament meeting starts, and they're passing around the sacrament, and I was like, so I'm sitting, with the sisters from Canada and Botswana. I was like, do I take this? Like, do I take the sacrament? They're like, yeah, like do it. So I took the sacrament, and then they started getting into like the testimonies. Yeah. So then, I think they had like over 50 languages, or like over people from over like 50 different countries in the Temple Square mission. So I was just like astounded by just like seeing these people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they get up, and these sisters start bearing their testimony, and I was just like, whoa, like what is going on? Like they're like crying, and they're like super like emotional, and they're like just getting so like deep, like talking about like what they're going through like on their mission. And it was honestly just like super inspiring. Like yeah, just like there were sisters from Australia, or,
Yeah.
Brazil, or, Denmark, or, like Japan, like literally from all over. And it was just incredible to hear them be like so vulnerable and like open with everybody. And they're all like testifying of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I was like, wait, they do this every week? And I mean, obviously, we don't,
Yeah.
but I was like, whoa, like this is like really awesome. So they took me after to music and the spoken word,
Mm.
which is incredible. So go to music and the spoken word, and then these two sisters from Canada and Botswana, they said, like, hey, like, thank you so much for coming. Like, we'd love to see you again. Like, when would you be able to meet up? And I told them, like, let's meet up next Friday. And I told them, like, bring me a copy of the Book of Mormon. And so yes, we met up that next Friday, and they bring me the Book of Mormon. They bring me the Plan of Salvation, like pamphlet.
Yeah.
So they bring me both of them, and they start telling me about the Plan of Salvation. And then they challenge me. They they invite me to I think like read like the introduction of like the Book of Mormon. And so I ended up by our next lesson. I think I read like all First Nephi. So I read
Oh,
like,
so you read ahead. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I was like, yeah, like I was like, why not?
What
So
was your first reaction to reading the Book of Mormon? How did you feel about it?
I think from like the moment I started reading it, I was like, this is definitely true. Like I said, I had like a really good experience while like studying the church, like learning about Joseph Smith. And so I was like, I was like, because people say is the church true? And like did Joseph Smith like really like translate the Book of Mormon? And I think when you read the Book of Mormon, like you're just like, there's no way that like a 23 like 24-year-old farm boy with very little education
Right.
could fake this,
Right.
And so I think when you read the Book of Mormon for the first time, like you just feel like the spirit so strongly. And I just felt like the stories of Nephi and Lehi, and they build the boat, and they're crossing the waters. I just loved it. And so yeah, I felt like from like the first second I opened it, like, and I started reading, like I was like, this seems pretty real to me. So yeah, so the first week I go to, like I said, the Temple Square ward. The second week, I go to this family ward that's like in downtown Salt Lake. And when we get out of it, they said to me, hey, like, are you trying to work towards getting baptized? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, I think so. But like, I was like, but like looking back now, like I
Yeah.
definitely did not know like what I was, getting myself into. But like, I remember like being in the moment, and I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, well, like I wouldn't be going to church
Right.
in reading the Book of Mormon if if there wasn't at least like a part of me that was, thinking about this.
Right.
So then the third week, so this is August 26th was our third lesson. And I wrote down just like a bunch of questions that I had to ask these two sisters. So I wrote down, like, what is the word of wisdom? Like, what is a testimony?
You came prepared.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what is the word? Like, what are temple garments? What are all these things? And, yeah, we just started chatting about it. And I think we were in the conference center for probably like 2 hours. just like we were having a great time, you know, just like go talking about all of this. And at the end of this third lesson, they say to me something along the lines of, hey, like, we've been praying about this a lot, and we feel that, you know, like, you're ready to get baptized. Like, we think September 9th would be the perfect day. Like, how do you feel? And I was like totally caught off guard. Like, because this was like 20 days from when I went to church with them for the first time.
So it was quick.
To when they asked me to get baptized. Yeah, so it was like 20 days. And I was like, whoa. And so I thought we were gonna be meeting for like months.
Right.
And so I was like, whoa, like, this is like for real. You know, like, I'm not just like hanging out with these girls.
You're
like,
not just learning about the history anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, they were like,
it is a change of lifestyle.
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. And so I was like, this is legit, you know? So I was like, okay, like, let me think about this. So then the next day I say to them, like, hey, you know, since you just asked me yesterday to get baptized, how about let's go back to the conference center and let's talk about getting baptized, you know, more. So yeah, so we go back to the conference center. I just start telling them like all the concerns that I had. So I'm like, okay, like, I'm gonna be like the only member of my family. You know, like, what is that gonna be like? I was like, you know, I haven't finished reading the Book of Mormon. Like, do I need to finish reading this?
Yeah.
Is this too soon? Like, is 3 weeks, like, is this too quick? Like, do I need more time? Like, am I really ready? And they're like, yeah, like, we know you're ready. They're like, we wouldn't have asked you if we didn't think you were.
Right.
And so we probably spent like another hour like at the conference center, just like talking through all these like concerns that I had. So they're like, yeah, like, you know, you don't need to finish reading the Book of Mormon. Like, you just need to, like, you know it's true. And so we're just like talking about all these things. They brought me to this like painting in the conference center. That's like Alma baptizing everybody in the waters of Mormon. They're like, you know, all these people, they were like really nervous to get baptized, but like, you know, and so they're trying to like cheer me up and like hype me up, you know, like make me feel good. So we're, you know, working through it. And after like we're looking at this painting, and I say to them, okay, like, I think I'm ready to get baptized. And then the sister from Botswana, she says to me, you shouldn't think, you should know. And so she was like, I think you should pray about it this whole week and like really get an answer. And she was like, when you get that answer, bring it to our next lesson. And I was like, okay, like, deal. So we go to leave the conference center, and we bump into like a bunch of other Temple Square missionaries, like who I had met before. And they told them like all that, like, I was thinking about getting baptized, and they were all like, no way, like, yeah, it's so awesome. And this one sister, who I had met before, she said to me, like, you know, that's like amazing. And she was like, why do you want to get baptized? And I was like, wow, like, that's like such a good question. Like,
right.
Why?
It's something you haven't thought about.
Yeah. I was like, so I was like, it's like such a simple question, you know, but I was like, why do I want to get baptized? So I have like 10, you know, sister missionaries, like, all staring at me, and I'm like I'm having this like internal like fight. I'm like, wow. I'm like trying to come up with like a really good answer. And I was like struggling to come up with like a really solid answer. And so the first thing I said was, I want to become closer to the Savior. And so they all start like saying like, oh, that's amazing. Like, that's so sweet. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, like, I just gave like such like a bad, like, obviously it's like, it's a good answer, you know, but I just felt like I could have given something like way more like personal or like deeper. So like then we then leave the conference center, and I just felt like horrible about like that whole interaction. So I was like, okay, so I now have a week to get this answer, you know?
Right.
So literally that same afternoon, I took out a notebook, and I wrote at the top of the page, and I wrote, why do I want to get baptized? And so I just started like really thinking about it, and I was like, okay, like, why do I? So then I just started writing. I wrote down like 15 different reasons why I wanted to get baptized. So I write these 15 reasons down. And then once I wrote it out, I felt like, okay, like this is why,
Yeah.
and I felt that like confirmation almost that, if anybody asks you, like, this is why you did this. Um, and I didn't really feel like as nervous as I did anymore.
Good.
And so from that point, so when I wrote it down, like that really helped. So then at our next lesson, which was like Labor Day weekend, and I show them the 15 reasons, and they were just like, this is amazing. Like I'm pretty sure they like started crying, and they were like emotional, because like
Yeah.
I feel I've told, other people like this story, and people have said to me, like, this is like a missionary's dream, and so they were like super happy. And so from that point forward, they were like, yeah, like you're ready. And I was like, okay, like I'm ready too.
Mm.
And so from that point forward, as like a team, we committed to go forward with like getting baptized. My only condition was that, so they wanted me to get baptized on September 9th, which would have been the following weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been like in a week. And I was like, hey, like I think this is just like way too soon. Like we don't know where we're gonna do this. Like we don't know like anything about it. And so I just said like, okay, like, if we're gonna do this, we need to really like plan it. Because like there's people I want to invite. Like I have like coworkers who are members.
Yeah.
Like there's people. I was going to an institute class at the
Mm.
University of Utah.
And you wanted to invite your classmates.
Yeah, I invited some of them. Yeah. And so I wish I like got in front of the class. And I was like, hey, like everybody come to my baptism. But like I just like invited a couple of people like, who I was friends with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was going to an institute class. Who the instructor, he like used to be in the 70. And so
wow.
he was this like, this class was called Jesus Christ and His Everlasting Gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like learning so much at this class. So yeah, so I say to the sisters, like there's a lot of people I want to invite. Like we need to plan this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to just like rush it. So we look at a calendar and we try to figure out like, okay, like what would be a good day. And so general conference was September 30th
Mm-hmm.
and October 1st. So we're like, okay, like let's do it the weekend after general conference.
Yeah.
And we picked October 7th. So we were just like, okay, they were like, okay, you could go to general conference and you could like see what that would be like. And then you can get baptized, after. And I was like, okay, awesome. So yeah, that whole month of September, we like planned the baptism. The elders from my ward, like they were helping out. And so they helped us like find a font and they helped, plan the baptism. And yeah, and so then October 7th. So yeah, I go to general conference, had this like awesome experience. I went to like 2 sessions. It was just felt the spirit like super strong.
Yeah.
And was literally taking notes, for every general authority.
You were on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And yeah, I loved general conference, and yeah, I just had such a great experience. Okay, just to back up real quick. So on September 9th,
Okay.
before general conference, so the day they wanted me to get baptized, I was telling all my coworkers,
Right.
like because who were members, like I would literally come into work and I'd be like, oh, this is what my lesson yesterday was like, or I'd be asking them like all these questions. I was like, yo, are temple garments uncomfortable? And so one of my coworkers, he says to me, he's like, hey, my son is getting baptized on September 9th. He's like, you should come to my son's baptism and see what it would be like. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So he lives down like Eagle Mountain. The baptism starts at like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I get there probably like 9:45, and I'm like sitting in the chapel, and I open up the program, and there's this primary song, and it's called When I Am Baptized. And I'm just like reading this. The baptism has not started yet.
Yeah.
And I'm just reading this song, and I'm just like overcome with like emotion. Like I'm like crying, like in like
sweet.
the baptism like hasn't even started.
Yeah.
And so the baptism starts, and like everyone is like singing like When I Am Baptized. I like can't even sing the song because I'm so like choked up. And yeah, it's just like it was awesome just to see what it was like. And I was like, okay, like if I feel like this at his son's baptism, like what am I gonna feel like in mine?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really great to be able to go and see like what it would be like. And I was like, okay, like it's not that scary.
Yeah.
Like I could do that. So my baptism day comes, and so I drive to the chapel, invited like tons of my coworkers, like people from my ward,
Mhm.
institute classmates, Temple Square missionaries. So the whole like baptism program was like all people that like I knew, so like all
That's
my friends,
awesome.
like my institute instructor who was in the 70s, he did like the baptism talk.
Right.
Um, one of my coworkers, she did like the Holy Ghost talk. My coworker whose son's baptism that I went to, he like confirmed me the Holy Ghost.
Wow.
So it was like really personal. I had
Yeah.
like all these people who were there. It was like super packed. Like there was a lot of people, and so it was really cool like to have all that support before I actually got dunked in the water. In the bathroom, so we're taking like I'm in my suit and tie. And we're like taking pictures outside, and I go into the bathroom like to change into the white jumpsuit,
Mm.
and I'm like holding the white jumpsuit, and I was like, okay, like this is for real,
Yeah.
like there's no going back. And it honestly took me like a while to like muster up like the courage to like put this on, because I just knew like, okay, like there's about to be like a night and day,
Mhm.
like something big. This is about to be something big. And so like one of my coworkers, like he comes in the bathroom and he's like, dude, are you doing all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I just need a minute. Like my bishop comes in and he's like, how are you? He's like, how are you feeling? And I'm just like, I'm so nervous. And he like calms me down. And we're like talking through it.
Mhm.
And so then I'm like, okay, like I can do it. So
Right.
I put the jumpsuit on, walk out into the chapel, and we the hymns that we did, I didn't know like all like a lot of hymns.
Right.
So I said to the sisters who taught me, I said, as kind of like a tribute to you guys, you each can pick your favorite hymn. So the sister from Canada, she picked I Stand All Amazed. And then the sister from Botswana, she picked Oh My Father.
Oh,
So
lovely.
so we like sang both of those. The elder from Florida, who was like the elder from my ward,
Mhm.
he baptized me. We get out of the font and we walk into the bathroom and we both start like laughing, and we were just like I can't believe that just happened. And like that was just like it was just so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, so then I change, go back out there. um what I loved it was everybody, I think they do this at like most baptisms, but like they passed around like little like note cards, and like everybody wrote like notes, like
So
like
sweet.
words of encouragement.
Yeah.
And one of my coworker whose son's baptism I went to, him and his wife, they ended up making me this like really nice like scrapbook with like all
Aw.
of them in it. And so like I
That's
love
cute.
like looking at that, because it just like because being a convert is like hard,
Yeah, of course.
and so sometimes like I'll just like look at that, or like I'll look at the 15 reasons like why I wrote down that I want to get
Yeah.
baptized, and it just takes me back to like why I did this.
That's good that you have that because, like, over time as you progress in your faith journey, it'll always remind you why you came here in the
Yeah,
first place.
exactly, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was like how my baptism went. And then the next day I go to my ward, and my bishop was like, hey, can you meet like after our second hour? I was like, yeah, of course. So I like go to his office, and he's like, yesterday was incredible. Just like wanted to thank you. So he's like we're talking about like the baptism, and then he says to me, he's like, we want to extend you a calling. and,
Oh, wow, just like
yeah,
that,
yeah, he's like,
yeah.
let's do it. So yeah, literally probably been like maybe 24 hours, like maybe not even, like since I got baptized. And yeah, so he's like, we want you to be the ward missionary. And so
Okay.
so that was super cool,
Yeah.
to do that, because I loved like going out on lessons with the elders and the sisters. Like
Mhm.
it was awesome. And like just helping to try to provide that like you know convert perspective.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I did that up until I think like February, and then they released me. I got called to be the secretary of the elders quorum.
Mm.
So I do that now. But yeah, so like I go to the temple every week. I like love going to the temple. Um, I got my patriarchal blessing like back in February, and like
Congratulations.
that was incredible.
Yeah.
Like just like amazing experience. I got the Melchizedek priesthood like 3 weeks ago, so like that was super cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's been quite the journey, but yeah, it's definitely like the best decision like I've ever made. And like I have good days and like I have bad days. you know, like it's definitely hard, you know, being a convert, I think
Right.
in Utah,
Yeah.
especially where there's just like so many people who have grown up in the church.
Right, it's a
So
different culture and a different
yes,
mindset.
yeah. So I'm like, do I fit in? Like, you know, like all these people served missions and like I just got
Mhm.
baptized.
Yep.
And so yeah, but it's been incredible. And I'm just so thankful for the sisters in Temple Square, who found me. And like, I still talk to them like
Yeah.
almost daily. Like I talk to them all the time.
That's great.
They're both off their mission. They both go to BYU Idaho. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to like getting endowed and, you know, just progressing as much as I can.
That's awesome. I'm so curious, how did your mom react to you becoming baptized?
Yeah. So when they asked me to get baptized, I called my mom as so she knew I was taking lessons. Like I said, like she told me to go to the Joseph Smith. She told me to go to church with them.
Right.
You know, she told me to go to the Joseph Smith building. And so like every week she'd be like, "Hey, like what are you doing this weekend?" And I'd say like, "Oh, like I'm meeting up with the sisters like on Friday." And then like my mom like didn't get the whole sister thing, so I started calling them by like their first names.
I see.
So I was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm meeting up with like, you know, the sisters on Friday and then I'm going to church on Sunday."
Right.
And like when we went to the family ward in downtown Salt Lake, for the second time I went to church, the two sisters who taught me, they're like, "Let's take a selfie and send it to your mom." And so like my mom like loved it. And so she knew I was taking lessons.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so when after they asked me, I think it was probably when I think I called her maybe after I showed them the 15 reasons. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
I called her and I said, hey, they asked me, the sisters, you know, asked me to get baptized, and I think I'm gonna do it. And the first thing that came out of her mouth was, "But you already got baptized."
Oh, yeah.
and I was just like, "Yeah, I know," but like I was a baby, and so I just told her like what I felt like and what I like these experiences that I was having and like what I was feeling, and she just said like, "Hey, you know, like I want you to, you know, follow your heart and I want you to like, you know, do what's best for you. And you know, like I'll support you." And yeah, she was like she definitely like didn't like understand like all of the church, you know, doctrine, but she was like totally supportive and just like really wanted me to be happy. And so I'm like super grateful because I've heard of, you know, lots of, you know, horror stories where, you know, people's families like
Yeah.
don't accept them and you know, after they join the church. So yeah, my mom actually she mailed me this like book, and it was like this blue book, and it had like the Salt Lake Temple on the front, and
Yeah.
it was like baptism journal.
Oh, wow.
And so like
That's so sweet.
yeah, so she's incredible. So yeah, I'm super lucky to like have had that, you know, had that support. And you know, because she's, you know, like she's been like, you know, a Catholic for, you know, like most of
Right.
her life. She has a lot of, you know, like gospel knowledge. And so like she'll do her own research on like the church. And
That's great.
so she'll be like, "Hey, like who's Nephi?" Or like
I love that
eh,
she's so welcoming of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been great. And so when I was home in Florida, for Christmas, we like I was like, "Hey, could you take me to the Orlando temple?" So there's only like two temples in Florida.
Mhm.
And we're like driving up and she's like, "Whoa, like, you know, it's so beautiful." And I
Yeah.
was like, so it was like really cool that like she got to like see the temple. I don't know if she'll join the church.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would assume not. Um, we were like talking. She was like, "Yeah, like I think I'm like too old, you know, to do that."
No such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely not like, but yeah, I definitely am lucky to have like had that support, for sure.
That's amazing. I love that. Um, if there's anyone watching who's thinking about joining the church but hasn't yet found their "I know I want to be baptized" moment,
Yeah.
instead they're just "I think I want to be baptized," what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly just like pray. Like I was literally in my room, like on my knees every night, like being like praying, be like, you know, Heavenly Father, like please help, like, is this true? Like,
Right.
is this the true church? Like, is the Book of Mormon true? Like, if it is, like keep guiding me on this path. Like,
Yeah.
if it is, like show me signs that it is.
Right.
And I just had all these like different incredible experiences where I was just like, there's no way it's not. And so, yeah, I would say really to like pray and get that answer. Um, just like Joseph Smith, like Joseph Smith, like, he went to the Sacred Grove and he prayed, and, our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, appeared to him,
Mhm.
and he got his answer, and so I know that like if you pray, um, like sincerely and like consistently,
As the Book of Mormon tells us to do, to pray
yeah,
to know that the contents of it are true.
absolutely, like you will get that answer. And maybe it's not for you,
Mhm.
like maybe you get the answer and like it, like because one of my coworkers, like I was asking him all these questions, like this is before I got baptized.
Yeah.
I was like, are temple garments uncomfortable? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, because I like so he's like, dude, you have to. He's like, you have to. He's like, you're like getting too ahead of yourself.
You're
Um,
focusing on the wrong
yeah,
things,
so
yeah.
he was like, you have to like focus on like the Book of Mormon and like, is this true? And if the Book of Mormon is true, then
Nothing else matters,
yeah, you
yeah.
know what I mean? And so I think you really gotta just like, not because I mean that there's so like the church is like a whole different world,
Right.
It's like you have to just really like focus on the basics,
Mhm.
like focus on the Book of Mormon, like grow, find your testimony in the Book of Mormon, find your testimony of Joseph Smith, find your testimony of living prophets and
Mhm.
apostles, and so yeah, I would just say, I mean, I think learning about church history is great, because like when we said like at the beginning, you learn just about these people who a lot of these people literally who were like converts from Europe
Yeah.
sail across the ocean and then get to America and then they get to like Nauvoo and then they get kicked out
And they're met
and
with
it,
trial
and then
after
they
trial after
gotta
trial.
they gotta pull a handcart across the
Yeah.
country, and they just didn't let anything shake them. And so I just think you gotta like follow your heart and you know, you know, yeah, I mean, it was a hard decision,
Yeah.
I mean, it was an easy decision to join the church, but it's tough, like, just doing something that like nobody else, that like, I didn't know any members of the church growing up, and so like nobody I went to college with, like, or were members of the church,
Mhm.
so like just going against that that societal like norm is hard, and
Mhm.
it can be scary, but I think you just have to like really get that prompting like, hey, like this is right, and I know it's true, and
And if you know it's true, everything else will fall into
for
place.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's what I would say is to anybody who's who's thinking about joining or trying to find their way in
I
the
love
church.
that. I also love just you sitting down and writing out those 15 reasons. I think that's great advice too for other people to take because sometimes we have all these thoughts that we can't collect, and just sitting down, writing it down is super helpful
Yeah,
and good to refer back to later.
totally. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I like I said, I love I love reading them.
Yeah.
Um yeah, because it definitely like I need to like print them out and like laminate them.
Laminate them so they
Yeah.
stay fresh forever.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Cause like I want to be, like 50 years old and like reading that
I
and
love
just
it.
just to know like, okay, like, 25 years ago,
Yeah.
this is why, you did this. So I think that's like super special. Yeah, and so I would just like, yeah, just stay true to you
Hmm.
and just really like, no nobody else's opinions, matter. Um, you just have to really follow your heart and and
Absolutely.
and do and do what's like best for you.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been so
Yeah.
great to chat.
If you guys have any questions or comments, as always, let us know down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.